Everyone, welcome to Beyond. Be sure to hit like and subscribe so others can find the channel. Today we have a very special guest, John Tankledge, who's the president of Marukan. John is a longtime cycling and mountain bike competitor and coach. John has won both national and California state championships over the years. He has combined a love for fitness with a passion for helping others experience a healthier, more fulfilling life. In keeping with that, John kicked off the year with a new Marukan apple cider vinegar product line and a renewed personal excitement as the world turns its attention to Japan and the delayed Tokyo Olympics, where the planet's most elite cross-country mountain bikers will once again assemble to compete and hopefully win the gold. Welcome, John.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ben. It's great to be here.
Absolutely. So glad to have you on. And as I was reading your background, you really have a unique sort of personal experience. And in fact, I was interviewing somebody who spent a lot of time in the East in another episode I did, and it was just kind of interesting to learn more about that part of the world, the Orient, and sort of the culture. But when we think about Marukan, what is your role as president there?
Well, I lead the U.S. company, which is a subsidiary of the parent company in Kobe, Japan. So we've been in the U.S. for over 45 years now, brought the rice vinegar over from Japan. Initially, we were shipping it over and packaging it here. And now we're actually, for a long time, since I think the 80s, we've actually been brewing it here and bottling it here. And a few years ago, we opened a second plant in Griffin, Georgia. So we're now operating out of Southern California, the Los Angeles area. I'm here in Paramount and also in Griffin, Georgia. So we've got facilities on both sides of the coasts, both sides of the nation. But yeah, my boss is in Kobe, Japan. So he leaves it to me to look over operations here as far as production, sales, marketing, all of the admin, and you name it. We're not a huge company, just only 48 people here in the US, many more in Japan, but we support each other really well. I think we've built a great team, and so it's a lot of fun to lead it.
Well, it's interesting. Your background as a championship cyclist is all about teamwork and building the teams for success. And so everybody's always going to be curious about how did you get from, being a biking champion to being the president of Maroocon? And so can you give us a quick 60-second summary of the path you took to get to your current position?
Sure. I actually grew up in the food business. My family owned a food company. It was a ethnic food company, a Latin food company, Mexican food company here in Southern California. That my grandfather, got into at a younger age when he was a younger man. And my father ran that company for a while, and I guess you would say, the heir apparent to run that. And I always knew growing up I would have a hand in running that food company. And but times changed, things happened, and family ended up selling the business. So kind of in my early 20s or mid 20s, I found myself saying, well, this is what I know. This is what I grew up learning. So I've kind of journeyed through different food companies, went to a food brokerage, which was the largest in the nation at the time, and represented some really big brands, which was a great experience for me. Got to know every buyer in Southern California. So I kind of went from a national sales role at the family company, at a smaller company, to a very localized role where you could really get intense with some bigger brands and see how the bigger companies worked in the space. And so then that was about the time I started cycling and really got into cycling, and it changed my viewpoint, perspective on life and my potential and what I could do. And got very confident, I think, at that point, and went out on a venture of my own that kind of didn't work, failed, and after a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But that led me to Marukan. So, I think good things happened from that. And it was kind of I think, right place, right time. Good for the company, really good for me. I think I'm a great fit here, being it's a smaller company, and there's so much that we can actually do to impact the business every day.
Yeah, sounds like it. And so what's interesting about Marukan is it's a rice vinegar story that spans 370 years in Japan, which, when you think about that, what business in the United States can claim that? The answer is zero, because we haven't been around for 375 or 370 years. So what would you say are the main benefits of rice vinegar?
Rice vinegar is great. I think of all the vinegars, rice vinegar tends to be the most mildest tasting. So it doesn't impart as much of a flavor on your food as, say, a wine vinegar or a balsamic vinegar or even an apple cider vinegar. And there's a place for those types of flavors, but rice vinegar is very neutral. It's really what created the origins of sushi in Japan.
Mm.
So before there was electricity, before there was preservative, any preservative, vinegar was a natural preservative. They made it from sake that had gone bad. So when sake turned, just like wine turns or beer turns, and is no longer good to drink, they found a use for it, and they would put it on the rice, and then they would stuff that rice inside the fish that they would catch. And they found that they could then carry this fish inland and keep it for days unrefrigerated, just wrapped in a palm leaf or something.
Wow. Just stuffed with rice with rice vinegar.
Yes, exactly. So those are the origins of sushi is seasoning the rice. And so the name of vinegar in Japan is su. It's called su. And so that's part of the word of sushi. Sushi doesn't mean raw fish like a lot of Americans think it means. It means seasoning the rice and then using that in all of the cuisine.
Hmm. Interesting. The closest thing I have with rice is rice milk. So what a fascinating story, the rice vinegar. So from there, it preserves the fish. You have it in the form of rice. So how did it go from there? How did it expand in Japan from that point?
So in Japan, it's like a commodity. This is what people use it for, and they use it in other cooking too, but it's primarily used in sushi. In the US, we're really great at taking other people's ethnic cultures and cuisines and adapting them to our own tastes and making our own thing out of it. And I've seen many examples of this throughout my career in food because I've sold many different products and items. But I think this is no different. I think in the US, most people are using rice vinegar as salad dressing because it makes a wonderful base. You can add your own fresh herbs, spices, maybe a fruit juice. You choose your oil or don't use any oil at all to keep the fat out. And you can really control both the flavor and the health benefits of your salad dressing. I mean, there's nothing more healthy than a salad until you pour that creamy, thick, cheesy dressing on there. Right. And then it can be the worst thing on the menu, at some restaurants. So by making it yourself, I think that's what most Americans have found out. The rice vinegar's got a wonderful place in the American pantry.
So what is the biggest challenge in translating the legacy of Maroocon to the American audience?
It is a challenge. We've done some focus groups where even though it says since 1649, the year on our label, people don't get that. They think, well, what, the rice vinegar's been around since 1649? No, it's actually the company, and it was the first company. We have gone back and documented this at our parent company in Japan. It was the first. Marukan was the first company to sell su as a product. I mean, people were making it themselves and having it at home, but to commercially sell it, Marukan's the first company in Japan in history to be able to do that. Of course, vinegar's ancient. It goes back, pre-biblical times, and even is mentioned in the Bible several times. So we know that people have been using vinegar for centuries, literally, and it's great because it's a natural product. Our genuine brewed rice vinegar doesn't add any calories or any salt to food, but I can't think of anything that adds more flavor, ounce for ounce. And so you can use a little, you can use a lot. It really helps to balance the flavors, break apart the fat so that you taste more of it and you don't have to use as much fat or as much salt or as much sugar. Those things that you're trying to kind of restrict or minimize, you can still get great balance. So I'm using it almost every day at home. It's a wonderful product.
Yeah. So John, Maroocon has a storied past, been around for hundreds of years now. So when you come into the US market, what's it like? What's the competitive landscape like for rice vinegar?
Well, marketing in the United States, supermarkets and restaurants is different than in Japan. And so I think that really started off my career here is having an understanding of how both worked very well and working at all levels of those, almost all levels. I can remember in my job interview, them asking, how do you think you can help? And I thought, I'm going to try to translate what you want to do into a go-to-market strategy that will fit the American market. And I believe that I'm the right person to do that. So I wouldn't try to change a lot of what you do. If it's a great product, it's got great distribution. We'll get better. We'll improve the distribution, make it even better, tighten up a few of the marketing things. really, it's just been a matter of making people aware of it. So, starting a little, small advertising campaigns as we can afford, as social media grew in popularity. We've used that very effectively. I think we're the leader. We're definitely the leader in social media in our category now. So we really connect with our consumers well, give them better ideas, and we've got people kind of routinely checking with us to see, what they want to try to make for dinner, or when the recipes that are in the cycle, in the rotation get a little old, tired, it's time to mix it up. They come to our website generally. So I think we've done a great job with that in the U.S.
So, John, when you think about the U.S. market, is there pockets of the country where rice vinegar is off the charts, whereas there's other pockets where it's less so? Because, to me, this is about healthy living, right? And I know you wrote Maroocon or Marukan, sorry,
Marukan, yeah.
Marukan, sorry, is linked to your experience and passion for healthy living. But if you look at the United States in general, and you look at the rate of obesity and diabetes and all the issues, and I was in another state the other week, and I won't name the state, but California, everybody's healthy, everybody's exercising, but that's not always the case in other states. So how does healthy living and lifestyles influence the purchase of rice vinegar?
Yeah, it does. Our top cities, usually metropolitan markets, we do real well, but also, B counties that are close by, Orange County, San Diego, these counties do well. So it's generally an A and B county product. It tends to skew towards the coast for sure. But I think the middle of the country is figuring it out too. I think that we're gaining traction with health food stores and healthier living. It's maybe not that the middle of the country doesn't want to be healthy. It's that they don't know how, or it's point me in the right direction. So with just some simple changes, I mean, I think lifestyle changes and eating changes, we can cure a big problem in this country for sure.
So part of your social media strategy, I would imagine, if you have recipes with rice vinegar, I mean, that would be a good starting point if I'm in the middle of the country and now I have this other alternative, salt or sugar. Because in my diet, I can't have a lot of salt just because I don't react very well to it. But I would imagine if you had a strategy around the recipes utilizing rice vinegar, that could be a reasonable starting point.
Yeah, when we rebuilt our website several years ago now, we looked at some of the best in class websites, not just food companies, but a lot of retailers. And we said, who's doing the best job of putting recipes? Because we really just want to have a recipe site that's primary. And so that we can help people. And when the pandemic came on, that even accentuated that. I mean, we kind of went into a marketing meeting one day and we said, guys, maybe what we need to do is just be helping people, because right now it's chaotic. You can't even buy stuff at the grocery store, a year ago. Let's help them. Let's help them use what's in the pantry, figure out how to make an easy meal. There's some of these people are not cooking regularly or haven't cooked very much before. So let's get them comfortable with this. And we're not the only company. There's so many other staple food companies that were very kind of, I don't want to say dormant, but very flat for a long time. Suddenly seeing big spikes. There's all kinds of baking going on and lots of home crafts, and food is all part of that. So we hope that people are also being healthy, because we know they're over the past year probably haven't gotten outside as much. Hopefully that wasn't the case and they were able to find ways to do that. But we've wanted to be helpful in that way.
Yeah, for sure. Those are all great points with, COVID and lockdowns and the impact it's had on people. That's a very good point, that cooking is sort of central to that experience. So as I transition to the next question, I see this incredible jersey in your background with a medal. You're a champion bicyclist. Can you sort of explain the importance of that jersey, what it represents, and kind of how it works in the biking world, or the competitive bicycling world?
Yeah, that's my national championship jersey. I won that. It's been a while now. It's 2004, so we're going on a while ago that was won. But I will never forget it. It was one of the happiest days of my life. It symbolized 3 years of very hard work that was an everyday commitment, of being the best cyclist I could be, while having a young family and working in a career. So it can be done. And that was part of the motivation of doing that, of achieving that, was just wanting to prove that it could be done.
John, what was a typical day like if you're training for 3 years and you actually ultimately won? What was a typical day like in your schedule as part of your training and getting prepared for this accomplishment?
I preferred to train in the mornings. So I got up and early. I mean, if I needed to be at work at 8, and I needed to do a 3-hour workout, the only way that was getting done was getting up at 3 or 4 in the morning. And so yeah, it was a lot of days, a lot of months of getting up in the dark. Um, you know, daylight savings time or not, it didn't really matter. I mean, the dedication level was super high, and I can remember waking up on Christmas morning and saying, "Hey, I'm scheduled to do a 2-hour ride today because Christmas falls on a Tuesday, and that's when I do my 2-hour ride." And having my wife say, try to keep the kids in bed until I get back, and
Right.
slipping out in the morning, and then it's like a ghost town. You go out 5 a.m. on Christmas morning, there's no one out, and does that make me a bad Christian or a bad person? No, I don't think so. It means I was dedicated to this. We still came back and celebrated Christian. It meant putting birthdays on hold. It meant traveling when there was maybe something more important that I could have been doing. So all of that really commitment and dedication is something that I'll never really forget. Maybe not necessarily something I want to do again, but for while I was doing it, I have such a great appreciation for what was accomplished, and it gave me a better appreciation for my competition and for people that are still continuing to do it today, which is wonderful. And the thing I love about mountain bike racing is you can do it at any age. There's 70-year-olds out there winning age class national championships right now. I don't want to cheapen the value of that because I'll cherish it forever, but they literally give out hundreds of those per year because every age class can win one at the amateur ranks, and then there's the pro ranks as well, which are open. But all of those people are putting in the same type of dedication. So to recognize that that's going on, it's really amazing.
So you mentioned earlier in the conversation that there was a pivotal moment when you're going through that process of 3 years where you realized you could accomplish things that perhaps you didn't realize before this process. So take the audience through that mindset and that thinking, that as you've gone through this 3 years of preparation to the ultimate goal of winning, in that process, how did it transform you as a man and as a person?
Yeah, I think you'd have to understand a little bit about my background. I mean, growing up, I was one of the chubby kids that we would consider not athletic. If we're picking teams for baseball or football, I'd get picked last or near the end. And so not the person that you'd see on the schoolyard of being, that guy's the stud athlete that you want on your team. Not at all. My family was into different types of sports. Grew up kind of a water ski racing family, which is a kind of a part of the Southern California culture. When I grew up, and I was a good water skier, but not as good as my friends. And then I got into Pop Warner football, and I was a good Pop Warner football player, but not as good as my friends. And I really wanted to be. Growing up, I wanted to be a race car driver. I really thought that was cool. I wanted to do it. I thought I had the skill set to do it. We did a little bit of amateur off-road racing back in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s. And I realized that, hey, I'm pretty good at this, but I'm not going to be a professional race car driver. I mean, I was seeing the sacrifices and the risks that guys were taking, and that just wasn't going to be me. And so you go through life thinking, well, I'm not really a sporty guy. I'm not really an athlete. And I was actually trying to get myself in shape, riding the mountain bike a lot more in my mid 20s, trying to kind of take another run at going water ski racing again. So I was getting in the better shape, in the best shape of my life, I would say.
Yeah.
And I was doing most of it on the bike, and something happened where we kind of weren't able to go boat racing and water ski racing the way that we'd wanted to. So it was kind of a turn of events. And so I went, well, gosh, I'm in great shape. Maybe I should just enter a bike race. And so back in I think it was 99 or 2001, entered my first bike race. And I asked a friend who had been bike racing, and he was doing well. And he said, oh yeah, go on this website. They had websites back then, but you did have to print the form and fax it back to them when you entered the race. So, and what I learned was, well, they have a class for 200-pound people. It's called the Clydesdale class, right? So maybe, and I started thinking, I'm not the fastest person I know, but there's not anybody that's really my size that can ride this fast. So maybe I'll do pretty well at this. And so I trained the best way that I knew how, and I entered my first Clydesdale race. And, that was kind of a funny story in itself, but long story short, I ended up winning that race kind of unexpectedly to me. And I think that's the moment, Ben, where I crossed that finish line and I'm waiting for second place to come by, and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm thinking, maybe I'm better at this than I think I am, or that I expect it to be. And I came back a couple of weeks later and won another race. And I thought, okay, that's it. I'm hiring a coach. And I think I had kind of this epiphany where I said, I'm going to have this conversation with my wife and say, give me 3 years. I don't know why I chose 3 years. I just did. And give me 3 years to decide how far I want to take this, because I'm on to something here. And I don't know. I can't, I know then I wasn't aware of what it was doing, but for whatever reason, I stayed on that path because it changed my life. It seemed like it was a destiny.
Well, it's interesting, to unpack everything you just said, there's a tremendous number of life lessons. For example, right, you said, hey, when I started off in Pop Warner, I was okay. I wasn't the best. Or if I played basketball or whatever I did, I wasn't the best. And I think that's true of a lot of people when they're trying to figure out their gifts, their talents, what they can excel at. That's true in life. And that reminds me of a quote I read one time where A students work for B students who work for C students. You don't have to be the best. I think it's about finding your gift. And in this case, you came across at a certain stage in life and you found out that you were pretty good at biking and winning and making those commitments. But I think the other part of it is you got really important feedback that when you win in those races and won, what's a better motivator than that kind of feedback, which sort of dovetails into leadership. So my next question is, how has your experience as an athlete and a cycling and mountain biking competitor and champion, I would add, helped you in your position today?
Well, it gives a lot of confidence. It puts hard things in perspective. I hear all the time, and I don't like hearing, well, we can do that, but it's going to be hard. Well, everything we do is hard. That's why we're here. We're here to solve hard problems. So trying to get people to understand that. I would say it was tough at first because you come out of that championship mindset and it's kind of like a get out of my way. We can do this. Just let me show you how to do it. I've had to learn how to be a lot more getting everybody on board, communicating better, understanding what they see as the challenges and the objectives, and then overcoming those in their own minds, not just mine, not even if I see a clear path to how we could do this, doesn't matter. I'm not going to get them. I'm not going to be able to lead them unless I get everybody else seeing that same clear path. So I've had to learn a lot going from there. I mean, cycling, you do have to build a team around you, but it is definitely comes down to the individual, the effort of the individual. And so you don't want to try to take too much on yourself. And I think that became an ingrained habit of mine that I've really tried to be a lot more of a cohesive leader than follow me, we're going this way.
Yeah, that's critical. And you think about that experience in biking and winning, right? And you knew what you had to put into getting up at 4 a.m, making it happen, no excuses, whatever it takes. And when you're going through the tough times, it is what it is. And then to transition and role as president, where the people in your team may not have that same mindset, right? May not have that same perspective, may not have that same dedication, may have other issues in their lives that they're just stuck in, right? They're stuck in that story. Yet you as a leader have this vision that in this experience that I would argue is transcendent, that you're looking at a situation and a team and an opportunity, and maybe in your mind's eye saying it could be here, but you realize that they got to get to that point. And I think that there's an art certainly in hiring people into companies. But I liken it back to an experience I had when I first flew a plane. That's kind of where I had that inflection point. I soloed a plane out of John Wayne Airport. And when I was going downwind in the powder, and I realized, if I can do this and I set my mind to something, there's probably a lot I could accomplish, right? And that was that kind of a confidence builder. But the problem with that is I'd go in at a young stage in life with those expectations on other people, and they're not there, right? And it's okay that they're not there. It's just that they're not there. And I think as a leader, you bring up a really great point. It's sort of taking your performance level and your mindset and everything you've learned and the toughness you develop in that 3-year process, and then being able to morph and synergistically work with other people where they're at and bring them up or bring them across that chasm, if you will, from an expectation or potential performance standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you bring up a great example with aviation. I mean, what's more seemingly impossible than flying, And so when you experience that at a level and you think I can do this, and I had a very similar perspective with you take the kid that wouldn't get picked in baseball to winning a national championship on a bike. you just learn that you have a different skill set. And I was born to be a good motor for a bike.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm good at. And you parlay that into, well, if I can do that, but it was so much more than just the talent. It had to come with a commitment. You
Yeah.
look at the athletes that are out there now, they have both. They can't have a little bit of one or a little bit of the other. They have to have maximum amounts of both. Great, obviously, genetic gifts, developed talents, and total commitment to their sport. And when that drops off just a little bit, it shows up right away, because everybody else is at such a high level. So
yeah, and when you think about teams, it's really important, right? You have high performance people on the team. When you have one person that's not carrying their weight, boy, does it have a ripple effect on the other members of the team. It really creates a lot of unhelpful dynamics, I would argue, in the team. And I have another funny story. Since I'm not a bicycling champion at your level, certainly, I do have a mountain bike that I've ridden. I used to ride a lot until I almost got taken out by a car, and then I bought a Peloton. And so today I use my Peloton every day. It's very addictive. It's a lot of fun. Certainly not what you experience, but in my own certain way, I can say I'm on the bike, and that really helps my performance and just gives me a different mentality as I go into the day.
Well, yeah, max respect. I mean, you can definitely put a lot of effort and a lot of sweat in a short amount of time on a stationary bike, Peloton or what have you, even manual, old school, which I did a lot. Sometimes the weather, for weather related reasons, or it's, you just have to do it at times. But but there's nothing like getting outside. And so I think that also with biking, that's what I really love about it, is being connected with nature a little bit more, climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
Why do you climb to the top of the mountain? Because it's there. They're just calling out to you to be climbed. They're just daring you.
Right.
That's the kind of the way I've always looked at mountains.
That's right.
And so, yeah, I mean, climbing them on a bike, it's a great accomplishment. And when you can be in the dirt and away from the cars, because I know I've had some encounters with cars, as myself, and it's definitely dissuades you from the road. Although I still do it, and I'll ride to work occasionally, but I do love being outside.
Oh, 100%, 100%. So your experience as an athlete and a competitor, what kind of roles has played in the products you and your team develop at Maroocon?
Well, I love the products that we sell because they're all so healthy. The apple cider vinegar was one that we really recognized as having so much opportunity. It really seemed to break out a few years ago, about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And we really kept an eye on it. Even though we didn't jump right in, we were probably the first to identify, wow, that product category, that segment of vinegars is really moving the needle. Because while I was really focused, and we still remain very focused on rice vinegar, we watched the other segments of vinegar to see where there's growth. And so after a lot of deliberation, a lot of discussion, we felt like it made a lot of sense. Marukan could come in and have a unique point of difference, because people recognize us for having the smoothest, mildest, slow brewed vinegar expertise that goes back over 3 centuries. And they really trust the brand name. And then we've differentiated it with a drink mix that makes it so much easier to drink, because we started studying the apple cider vinegar consumers and found that even the diehard loyalist apple cider, a shot in the morning every day, they're not crazy about the taste. They really didn't like it. I think that the average score was 3 out of 10 on the taste, because apple cider vinegar is pretty harsh.
Yeah.
So we've developed a drink blend that actually blends organic apple cider vinegar with organic Maroocon rice vinegar. Mm-hmm. We add just a gram of sugar, so there's enough to sweeten it up, but not so much that somebody's going to say, well, I can't take a shot of that. That's pure sugar. If you look at some of the gummies that are coming out of the markets, or the apple cider vinegar alternatives, or they call it ACV because it's not really apple cider vinegar, but they can identify that. It tends to be a little bit more sugar laden and candy like. And we didn't want to create a product like that. We wanted to really create something that health advocates could get behind, and people who are using it every day as a routine.
Yeah, that's really important. So do you have a personal apple cider vinegar use story that you can share?
Yeah, I did. When we started developing it last year, I started using it myself. And I was always very cautious, because there's certainly a lot of studies and a lot of claims. And I never want to be a company that makes a lot of claims and can't really back them up through science, or you're using somebody else's study, which might be pretty good. And I believe most of those studies out there to be accurate, that it can help weight loss because it kind of tempers blood sugar levels, slows down the insulin response of your body. So it restricts or limits that fat storage a little bit, can actually quote unquote burn fat in a roundabout way. Helps with stomach issues. What we started seeing is, hey, people are trying this, and regardless of what the studies say, they're having personal, good experiences with this product. I'm going to try it for myself so that I can testify or not of whether it's doing anything for me. And yeah, I definitely did. In fact, I was nursing an injury where I was struck by a car and landed on the ground on the asphalt and had a terrible back injury. I mean, it was a real deep internal hip bruise between my sternum and my hip bone that he just could not heal because there's no blood flow there, and so inflammation was a killer. I was taking over the counter, ibuprofens and naproxens, Advils or what have you, every day. And it literally got me off of that. That and, other treatment, because I was seeking other treatment, but it never had surgery. Did an epidural shot, did actually some PRP treatment, which I highly recommend. I thought it was a great thing for me. But apple cider vinegar was also part of that. It knocked out the need to have that pill every morning, and just didn't want to be on that for the rest of my life. I didn't think that was a good way to go.
Right. No, that's absolutely for sure. So, you got a demanding job. You're the president. You got a lot of report responsibilities. You got revenues you got to generate. You got to grow a market within the United States. So what else do you do to stay in shape physically, emotionally, and mentally?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, these days it's coaching, and really what I would say my passion for cycling has turned into the passion for coaching and teaching others, because the moment I stopped, the moment I won that jersey and said, okay, I've made this promise to my wife. Now we've got to raise a family. I've got to get serious about my career, and support us. And what I instantly shifted that into was I told my wife, okay, I'm going to stop racing, but I'm going to start coaching. And that opened a whole different thing. So I immediately went and got my USA Cycling coaching license. I did all the studies, got the certificate, went to all the seminars, and went to Colorado Springs every couple of years and did that. And I started coaching people. And initially it was my competition that wanted me to coach them. They said, show me how you did that. Show me what made you so good so fast. And I was coached. So having that base, I had a fantastic coach, wonderful coach by the name of David Brinton here in North Hollywood area, and learned so much from him, and kept him on for 3 years, where we talked, weekly and met face to face once a month. So I really kind of follow the same routine with the people that I coach. I think that you need to coach them face to face. Lots of coaching's become virtual and online, and through apps and things. And I really like the personal touch. So the group of friends that I ride with for fun after work, back in about 2007, 2008, I had a teacher friend from Lake Arrowhead who said, hey, I'm the PE coach up at Rim of the World High School in Lake Arrowhead. And, in the mountains, kids don't always want to dress for PE. It's cold outside. They can find what to do. So I'm really trying to make it more fun. So he had some money in the school's budget one year where he went and bought a bunch of $300 bikes, like 50 of them. And he said, okay, part of PE class is going to be mountain biking. So he told me this. He says, I taught my PE class how to mountain bike ride, and now some of them want to go racing. Do you think you can help give me some training plans and coach these guys? And I said, well, hey, better yet, Scott, through my travels, I did some racing up in Northern California, and I'm in Northern California at the time. They had a high school biking league. And I said, maybe what we can do is have a high school team, and then we can, charter a bus and get our kids up and race in some NorCal races. And we had an incoming freshman the next year that said, hey, my dad says there's a guy trying to start that same league down here in Southern California. And so we got involved in doing that, and one thing led to another. And then I was the president of the SoCal Cycling League for 6 years. And that thing has really taken off to now where we have like 80 schools in Southern California doing it, over 1,000 riders at our races. I mean, it's into middle schools now. So it's really been great. So my passion as a coach has kind of transferred into high school mountain biking. And so to answer your question in a long way, how do I stay in shape? You know, we have a couple mountain bike practices per week. You know, we do a midweek one on Wednesdays. I'm now coaching Loyola High School, which is in downtown LA.
Sure.
Has a hard time, you know, with mountain bike trails.
Yeah.
You know, because they're right in the middle of the city. So we generally have to go up in the foothills, and we meet up there after works or late in the days, and you know, ride until sunset. And we'd ride again on Sundays. And normally in a normal year we would race, but you know, with pandemic, we had one race last year, had to cancel everything. They tried to do some things this year. It didn't pan out again because of the pandemic. So, but we're trying to make it fun for the kids. Last Sunday we did an epic ride, what we call an epic ride, where we kind of are on our bikes all day. And rode a big section of the Mulholland Trail out in Malibu from far out as Ventura County, all the way into Malibu Creek State Park. And you could see the ocean almost the whole way. I mean, it was just a beautiful ride, great weather. We had the parents deliver us lunch in the middle on one of those highways that cuts through the canyons, you know, and it was just it was a phenomenal day. And I'm getting a lot. It's super rewarding to introduce younger people to the sport, because I came into it in my 20s, you know, after college and work, and then you'd sit at a desk and you kind of go, okay, I don't like the way my health is going here. I started getting out with my buddies to ride, but you know, to figure that out when you're 18 or 19 instead of 28 or 29, I think gives you a huge leg up. And then to have a little bit of competitive experience, because as I said earlier, you can mountain bike race for the rest of your life. You know, there's classes out there for you. You never have to stop. If competition is your thing, great. And if it's not, 90% of our kids in high school racing, they're probably not going to continue competing, but we try to make them love biking and appreciate it and know that they can always do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So do you guys have sponsors? I mean, you got 1,000 bikers, you got multiple schools involved. Do you have actual sponsors from the mountain bike manufacturers?
The league has quite a few sponsors, and they're very, very generous, you know, giving cash to support the league and products as well. But, you know, it takes cash to run the league because there's a lot of racing infrastructure. The league is mostly volunteer, so it saves a lot of money getting a lot of coaches and parents out there. And the parents, I think, are I should say the coaches are the backbone of the league, because the guy that started the Northern California High School Racing League was Matt Fritzinger. He was a math teacher at Berkeley High School. And I met him early on this process when we were looking to start the SoCal League. And he kind of came down and showed us how to do it. And, you know, what I learned from him was if you have a coach, you have a team. That's really what it takes. It's not about how many talented riders you have or what the parent support is. The coach is everything to a team. And then it's a nucleus, and it follows. And so what we try to do is as a league, we primarily try to train coaches, because if you make a coach available, you can have a team at the school, and then the students will find you. And it's led to some great success. It's changed youth biking in this country, no doubt about it. And it's actually put us on the international stage, which is also really cool.
Yeah. And speaking of that, the Tokyo Olympics are just 4 months away. Are there any SoCal riders or cycling mountain bike athletes we should be keeping an eye out for?
Yeah, there actually are. There's a top of mind for me is there's one SoCal rider, Hannah Ray Finchamp, who's on the long team to make the Olympics from SoCal. I actually, you know, was able to see her compete all the years that she competed. We do something unique here in Southern California. You know, after the Southern California League took off, the whole nation got behind it, and you started seeing leagues pop up in Colorado and Texas and all across the country, in Florida and Georgia and New York. And that's been wonderful. And so that kind of started NICA. One thing that's unique about the California leagues is that in a normal year, SoCal competes with NorCal. So I got to see Hannah go head to head with I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the name here. Kate Courtney, I'm sorry, is the former world champion from Northern California. She's a series champion holder now, and was I believe world champion in 2018. So Kate's a NorCal rider. She's on the Olympic team. She's solidified her spot. I think we get 3 spots on the women's side. The 2 men's spots are coming from I believe Colorado and Arizona, if I'm not mistaken. But
Well, let me ask you
the
this. How
women's,
important is it for these athletes to train at altitude in Colorado? So if I'm in Southern California
oh
and I'm
yeah.
racing, does it make a big difference if I spend some of the year in Colorado training for the Olympics?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, altitude will naturally increase your red blood cell count.
Mhm.
So that's why so many endurance athletes will train in either an oxygen tent or they'll go to altitude. But it's also important to go down to sea level or as close as you can get to it and do your high intensity training so that you're not starving yourself for oxygen when you're wanting to do your most intense stuff.
Mm,
So the kind of the going theory is live high and train low. Um,
okay. I've
but
never
but
heard that
training
before.
high,
Yeah,
training high a little bit um, can help as well because it acclimates you more to when you are going to experience that during a race.
right. Well, that's exciting. So we've talked about Marukan and its products of rice vinegar, apple cider vinegar. What is your call to action to the audience, to the Beyond audience?
Well, I like to see everybody just be a little bit more active. I think one thing that's great about Maroocon is we are an active company. We have a triathlete, here that's running our sales department. She's our VP of sales. Um, we have people that go out for walks on breaks and lunches, and we see that a lot. People eat generally very healthy. When I'm in the kitchen in the middle of the day, everybody's always kind of bringing their leftovers. We don't go out a whole lot. Of course, with the pandemic, we were really going out very little. But we do go out and we do a lot of reconnaissance on what the food trends are. We really have to stay on top of that and be foodies ourselves. But yeah, my encouragement to people would be a little bit more active and enjoy the outdoors. I mean, they're out there for us. We're meant to be there, and so I take part in that a lot. There's a day or two a week that I'll leave early to coach a practice or just go out and ride by myself or with friends. And it's really great for me to clears my headspace. I really continue to work in my own mind while I'm out there. I do some of my best thinking when I'm riding because it gives me total concentration, and I can really focus on what I think about. And I solve some hard problems that way, at times.
Yeah, 100%. Where can the audience learn more about Marukan and its family of products?
Well, I think our website is great. It's just go to ricevinegar.com. That's the easiest way to get there. That domain's nice and easy. It's ricevinegar.com. There's a lot of information on there about our apple cider vinegar as well. We do have a separate Marucon acv.com website as well, but you'll find all of that information on ricevinegar.com.
Nice. Is there anything we haven't covered you'd like to share with the audience?
Just that I'm probably most proud of my family and for sticking together with me through all of this stuff. The early days career changes, and I think I found a home that suits me now. The going along with my bringing something home that's a little different for dinner and saying let's try this out, and ultimately turning my kids into foodies myself, who are all off, and one's through college and the others are off at college out of state. But they're doing a lot of their own cooking, and they're calling and texting me and asking me questions about what do you think about this, and should I add this with this? And so they've got to know some really excellent chefs, some of the best chefs in the country, and who we've worked with and participated with and done a lot of fun things with. So we get a lot of good tips. We get a lot of good advice, kind of pro tips. And so in a way, we've kind of become very, very expert ourselves. And it's been a lot of fun. And we love it. I think having a passion for your product and that company is what makes us who we are.
Do you guys have a foodie blog going?
Social media is probably the best way. Our Instagram blog has got a recipe almost every day, every other day. We try not to overwhelm people because I know you get too many sometimes.
Right.
So, but just we try to make them timely, and we try to make them helpful so that nobody has to be afraid of, I got to block these guys because they're just annoying. We really try to be helpful and solve a problem for you. We realize that too much is not always the answer.
Right. Less is more for sure. John, thanks so much for your time and beyond. Really enjoy the conversation.
Yeah. Thank you, Ben.